So we did part A and part B of finding our GCS. So now what I'm going to do is do part C. This one has to do with a common number factor. Here is where I tell you want to do a tree diagram for any constant or any coefficient that's in the problem. So here's an example. I have 72a squared minus 24a plus 48. I know that they don't have matching set of parentheses, so we don't have to worry about version A. I know that even though two of these have the letter A, the third term does not have an A. So I know they don't have a common letter. So when we have three terms, and we know that there is no parentheses and there's no common variable, you got to still check to see if you have a common number factor. Now, how to do a common number factor? What we're going to do is we're going to do a tree diagram for every constant and coefficient. So I'm going to do a tree diagram for 72, the coefficient here, 24, the coefficient here, and 48, the constant here. Now, if you didn't know how to do a tree diagram, we tell you just think of any two numbers that you know that multiply that will give you 72. Everyone might have a different starting point. Some people might say 2 times 36. Others might say 8 times 9. Others might say 6 times 12. It does not matter where you start off. I'm thinking the majority of you will see 8 times 9. When you break it down as 8 times 9, when the 72 is gone, what you're going to do is you're going to see if this 8 or this 9 can be broken down any further. Our goal with tree diagrams is to try to get all prime factors. Prime factors means that you can only think of one and itself as factors. For example, 8, besides 1 times 8, you know that you can do 2 times 4. That means this is not prime. You must break this down. When you do a tree diagram, never ever use 1 and 8 because we'll be here all day. 1 times 8, 8 would be 1 times 8, 8 would be 1 times 8. Avoid using 1 in a tree diagram. So I know that 2 times 4 also works. Now, see if any of these branches can be broken down. You know that 2 is a prime number. The only thing that works is 1 times 2. Anytime you hit a prime number, I gotta circle it, just to know I can't break that down any further. But I know this 4, I can branch that again, because besides 1 times 4, you know 2 times 2. And we just told you that 2 is a prime number. So I remember, anytime that I hit a 2, circle, you're done with that number. 9, going back up to here, remember it's not circled, so we're going to see if it can be branched off. Besides 1 times 9, we know 3 times 3. And 3, I only can think of 1 times 3. We're only thinking of whole numbers. So I don't want you to say, well, I know 1/2 times 6 is 3. We're only thinking of whole numbers that multiply to give us 3, and the only combination I can get is 1 and 3, so it's prime. So I'm done 72. Let's do 24. Again, some of you might solve 3 times 8, 2 times 12. I'm assuming the majority of you might have solved 4 times 6. We already said that 4 can be broken down as 2 and 2. And 6, now I can't circle it because I know that 2 times 3 makes 6, so you got to branch that off. And then these are prime numbers, so I'm done. We call this a tree diagram because you can see it starts looking like a Christmas tree with ornaments at the bottom and it starts branching off. Let's do 48. Again, doesn't matter what you start off with, okay? We'll all have the same numbers down here, just maybe in a different order. So if you did 2 and 12, you might have 2, but you might have broken 12 as 3 times 4. So yours might be 2, 3, 2, 2. Same numbers, but just in a different order. That's okay. And then 48, I already said that most of you, I'm thinking 4 times 12. Some of you might have solved 6 times 8. Doesn't really matter. And then 4 is 2 and 2. And 12, maybe 2 times 6. But 6 is 2 times 3. So now that I broke down every constant, the 48 got broken down, and the coefficients, now we're going to just arrange our prime factors in order, because everyone might have a different order. So for us, I have 72. Let's see. 3 2s. 1, 2, 3, and 2 3s. For 24, looks like I got 3 2s and just 1 3. And then for 48, looks like I got 4 2s and a 3. See how they're in order? I did my 2s and my 3s. And so whatever type of order you want them in, try to group them all together. The next thing that you want to do is notice that 72, 48, and 24, they all have the same number factor. So for each group, I circle them. So I see that they all have 1, 2 in common. But I also see that they all have a second 2 in common. But notice they all, each and every term, has a third 2 in common. But notice they don't have a fourth 2 in common because they ran out of 2s for these guys. But notice they all have a 3 in common. Doesn't matter what 3 you use as long as you see that they all have a 3. So I can see they don't have anything else in common that all 3 terms have. So what I want to do is to get my GCF is multiply each group number to get my GCF. So notice I have 2, a second 2, a third 2, and a 3. And if I multiply this out, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 3, I can see 24 is my GCF. Each one of these can be divisible by 24. Now some of you might have thought that maybe it's 12 or 6, but by doing the tree diagram, you can see that the greatest is 24. Now remember, once we find out what our GCF is, I'm going to erase the board, we have to factor it out. Okay? The test is not going to say find the GCF. The tests are going to ask you to factor out the GCF. So these steps help you find the GCF. But once I know my GCF is 24, we're going to have to factor it out. Remember, we're going to have to get my leftovers. Once I know my GCF is 24, notice that there's 3 terms here. I'm going to divide each and every term by the GCF. 24, 24, 24. And here you can use your calculator to know that 72 divided by 24 is 3. And then you're still left with the a squared. Because remember, we don't have a common ladder, so a squared versus no a's, you still got 2 a's left on top. Here, 24 and 24, remember, 24 divided by 24 is 1a, so you can either put negative 1a, or you know that you don't have to put this here, and you can just say negative a. So either negative 1a or negative a, both will work. And here, 48 divided by 24, because you found the GCF, they all have to divide out evenly. You're not going to have a remainder. So 48 divided by 24 is going to be 2. If you distribute, you're going to get your original answer. Okay? So this is how to find GCF, these 4 steps, when you're looking for a common number factor.